Hello, everybody. This is Rufus Thibodeaux. Welcome to another episode of Promise and Purpose, where we talk about the transformative power of the Word of God and how that links to us discovering our purpose and unlocking our hidden potential. And today I'm here with Justin Cranmer. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but we're going to talk about, you know, basically how aligning ourselves with God's promises can, again, unlock, help you to discover that, what you're supposed to be doing and align that with your purpose. He's making me nervous here. He's in his parents' camper. I was expecting him to be in his house. That's completely throwing me off. And so no, I'm just joking. So anyway,
Yeah.
man, let's just get started. Your time is valuable. So why don't you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do, your background, and kind of bring us up to speed there.
Yeah. I am a life coach. I used to be a public school teacher. So I was an art teacher and a wrestling coach for 14 years. Was in a little bit of a couple different occupations before that. I built houses and flipped houses, kind of I was just in construction, but um, really in the past year, I've told a lot of people that I've probably learned more in life than I have in the first 20 years of my career or jobs and occupations, because going from just having a steady paycheck and be having a safe, secure public school teaching job to being an entrepreneur, starting businesses, kind of going out there. My wife and I have a short-term rental, a condo in Branson, and then we also have a camper at our house that we just put up on Airbnb in Verbo, and just
Nice.
got that rented for the first time.
Cool.
And so, just been doing a lot of new things and learning a lot of new things in the last year. And we took our kids out of public school and started homeschooling them. So I'm kind of in charge of that, on
Okay.
top of my wife's a mental health therapist, and so she was successful in her practice, and so we are expanding that, and we hired another therapist, and so we've been working to market and um, um, just do everything for running that business and changing that into a group practice. We hired another coach for that, and so yeah, I mean, there's the three ladies are in my wife's practice, which is Full Bloom Counseling and Coaching, and then I have Jericho Coaching because it's more of a manly thing. So we
Okay.
kind of separated those. So
Nice.
yeah, I mean, just a lot of things. God has really called me uh, to a lot of things. Has really kind of uh, broken me free from a lot of bondage and a lot of things in the last year.
Okay.
And I mean, it's just been incredible how I feel like God has been moving in my life, our lives, my wife, and we have three kids too.
Yeah.
But just to really step out and you know uh, listen and follow His will, uh, and be able to do that. And it's just it's been fun. It's been stressful. It's been
Sure.
pretty crazy, but it's been quite a wild ride the last year or
Okay.
so.
Nice. Well, man, you said a lot, dude. So first of all, you're homeschooling your kids. We homeschooled our kids. And
Yeah, that's awesome.
when I say we, I mean my wife did primarily. So the
Yeah,
fact that you say you're taking the lead, dude, I take my hat off. If I had a hat on, I salute you. Um,
yeah,
because that's a serious thing. And then the whole idea of being an entrepreneur, I mean, especially real estate. I remember we talked about that when we talked the other day. A lot of feast or famine. I mean, it's like, it can be crazy. I mean, because it's like, it's not
yeah,
like it's interesting. Like at the end of the year, sometimes you kind of add up. There's a big difference between adding up all the receipts and say, whoa, I made a couple $100,000 this year versus taking 200,000 divided by 12 and getting that paycheck. I mean, that's completely different world. So yeah, so that's
yeah.
I know all about that world. So let's switch gears a little bit here, man.
Okay.
I want to hear a little bit more. You alluded to some of those things. I want to dig into some of that, a little bit more about your journey. And so what I want to know is tell me about, have you ever, how have you personally dealt with feelings of like unfulfillment or disconnection from your potential and kind of, what strategies have you found effective in dealing with that? And I guess that's the same ones that you be recommending to your clients. But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think just as far as being unfulfilled, just as a man and having a purpose, and
Yeah.
if you don't have a purpose and you don't really feel fulfilled, I think so much of manhood is tied to that.
Sure.
We're just wired differently than women. And so if you don't have that, that can really kind of lead to a downward spiral,
Okay.
even to where, um, you know, bad habits or addictions, can be worsened. And, if you don't have a purpose every day, really, and you wake up with a purpose and something to do every
Yeah.
day, um, you can really disconnect. And my wife and I, she's a therapist, but we've been to couples therapy. We've done, couples groups with our church,
Yeah.
and individual therapy also, both of us. But if you're not connected in a group, you can really get in that downward spiral, to where, maybe a bad habit kind of leads to bad emotions, feelings, and ideas, and then
Sure.
that makes you kind of keep spiraling down that that rabbit hole of sin, and just disconnect from other people who are really going to help you. I think the best thing is to really have that community and connect with other people. Get a
Yeah.
coach, get a therapist, get somebody that you can trust and talk to, and help you get out of that spiral.
100%. And lately I've been looking at and understanding the power of community. It's huge. But again, you said a mouthful there, man. First of all, how long have you been married?
Uh, 14 years this
Okay.
summer.
All right, nice. So, my parents, I grew up as a pastor's kid, and my parents would talk about marriage. They would compare it to years of life. So like my wife and I've been married 34 years. So we're like a 34-year-old man. You know what I mean? 34
Yeah,
years old.
yeah,
You guys are
that's
like
true.
you're like 14 years old. You're like a
Yeah.
teenager. And it's
That awkward age.
right. But it's interesting. You mentioned going to couples therapy, man. We had done that as well. Probably about a year ago, we started doing that, and it was like somebody turned the lights on. You know what I mean? Because it was like
Yeah,
that wasn't something. Even though I grew up in church, well, I guess maybe especially because I grew up in church, there was no talk of therapy. There was no, I mean, that wasn't,
yeah,
you know what I mean? We've got to cast the devil out of your whatever it is and, keep it moving. And so, but good for you that you guys did that. And you're right, you can, but anyway, I'm bouncing around a little bit, but you just are saying a lot of stuff that I didn't want to gloss over, but that's great. And
yeah.
yeah, you can go down that spiral. Purpose is really, really important. You got to, one guy I talked to a couple of days ago said that before you know who you are, you need to know whose you are. So I think that that's still
That's true.
connecting with your relationship with the Lord, but also your community. I mean, I think that's all
Hmm.
connected. So here's another question for you. Um, can you share an instance where you had difficulty applying some type of biblical principle in your everyday life, and and what did you do to overcome that?
Man, I know. I feel like my flesh. I do what I don't want to do,
So, like
and
Paul, yes,
yes, yeah, exactly. Um, and yeah, I mean, I struggle. Um, I know what to do. I know what I should be doing, and I just struggle not to do that. I know. My wife and I have been reading Bible in the morning and
right,
praying for, we started that. Well, we did years ago before we had kids.
okay,
And then, once we have kids, it's just
yeah,
a whole
throw
nother
things off.
world.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah.
course.
But we just, in the last year, a little over a year, we've been doing it,
Okay,
where we get up in the morning, and read and try to make that our priority first thing before I check my phone,
yeah,
before I do anything else, let the dog out usually and sit down on the couch and read, and then pray together.
okay,
And it's hectic because we we started homeschooling, so it's nice because the kids sleep in,
yeah, sure,
and so we can have a little bit of quiet time before they get up. But sometimes they get up, and so we're still trying to pray, which is a good example for them.
sure,
But yeah, I mean, just I think just really um, following God's word and what He's called us to do. I know that that's been hard. I've fought that really my whole life, where I've felt God's calling on my life. I've
Yeah,
almost feel like the Holy Spirit really just have that emotion come over me, and tear up or whatever it is. And I've fought it my whole life. I'm
sure.
40 years old, and I've just really in the last year or two been able to kind of open up and admit that I have feelings,
Yeah,
and be able to work through that. And so, yeah, I mean, I've struggled. I think it's really just really following what God has told me to do
yeah,
in a very specific instance. And that's where I think I've felt very strongly been called to take our kids out of public school. So
yeah.
I was a public school teacher
Oh, yeah. Okay.
in a high school, and so I see what's going on in the high school. And our
Totally.
school district is, I would say mostly conservative, and it's a good school district, but still, I mean, just school in general is not really aligned with our values, our
Sure.
morals, and it's not getting any better. And so, I've really felt called to take our kids out of public school and to teach them, disciple them myself and with my wife.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, following what God has called is not always easy, called us
No.
to do, but it doesn't mean that it's not right.
Yeah. Well, right. I think most of the things that are the right thing to do are probably hard. I mean, anything that's going to lead
Yeah,
to growth is difficult. I mean, it's like, yeah, anything, exercising. I mean, it's all difficult.
yeah.
But I'm curious, what are you guys reading right now? What did you read today?
I've been in the book of Daniel. And
Nice.
so um my wife, we're not always in the same chapter,
Okay. Yeah.
she's not, but I'm going through Daniel right now. I really want to get back to going through the New Testament. We've been watching the Chosen with our kids at night. That's kind of our binge, watch
Okay.
an hour of TV at night before we go to bed.
Yeah.
And so we've been going through the Chosen. So I really want to read through, the New Testament again, and then start like going through that with our kids, because we've talked to them, and they see Jesus performing the miracles on the
Yeah.
Chosen, and they're amazed by it. And I'm like, well, yeah, let's, in this part of the Bible, and we'll look it up and talk about it, but we haven't really read through it all with them and
Yeah.
explained it all to them. So that's important.
It is. It's interesting though, but what you're doing is great because you are personalizing the Bible. I mean, that's, a little bit ago you mentioned we were talking about, where you struggle to apply biblical principles. And I felt a lot like you growing up in church. The church was sort of the family business, you know what I mean? And so
Hmm.
I was sort of expected to sort of take over, and it wasn't something that I was really interested in. But I I have a strong relationship with the Lord, and I knew I wanted to do something, but what exactly, I'm not really sure. So it's interesting. And I think the same thing you're discovering is that, okay, I mean, like you had to just figure out, how can I apply the word in my day,
Hmm.
and how can I use that? I mean, that's part of the reason why
Yeah.
I started this podcast, was really
Yeah.
to talk to guys about that have struggled like I have, about applying the word, and how did you figure out how to do that? And also, brings me to my
Yeah.
next question. We talked a little bit about community, but what role has community played in your journey? I mean, your journey of spiritual growth and expansion. I mean, and how would you recommend that people, deepen their connection by establishing, more community in their life?
So, I mean, I think if you show me your friends, then that'll show you your future.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
that's
point.
the,
Kind of
the
enough
the
said.
ancient parable.
Yes, right.
Um, but I think for me, it's really been um, our community of our small group. We've
Okay.
been in parts of a couple different small groups with church, and just really connecting with other people who are on the same walk of life. They're in the same situation. A lot of times we'll do groups with people that have kids, same
Yeah.
age, and just kind of connect with other people who are in a similar part of life, you know.
Okay.
They don't have to be the same age. You know, we're friends with some younger people. We had kids a little bit later in life, and so our kids are, you know, 11, 10, and 7. But we're friends with another couple who's a few years younger than us. But they, you know, they have, you know, a 5, 7, and 9 year old, and
Okay.
you know, our kids are friends, and so we're
Yeah.
friends. We go to church together, and we do life together, and just, you know, starting with small group, but really connecting with a couple of um, people who you can really trust and do life with.
Yeah.
And we've had some very powerful prayer meetings just at our house, you know,
Yeah.
just have one or two other couples. We had one the other night, and you talk about just feeling the Holy Spirit moving. Like we sat and talked and had dinner for a while. There's two other families, all our kids are running around, and we said, let's go outside. And we prayed for, there were 6 people, you know, 3 different couples. We prayed for one person at a time, laid hands on them,
Nice.
and we were standing outside, and no kids came out and bothered us. It was amazing.
Wow.
Like they came to our glass sliding door
Yeah.
and watched us,
Yeah.
but it was like we were the fish in the fish tank, and they would come and look at us and watch us for a while and see what we were doing, but nobody bothered us.
Yeah.
And we spent like over an hour and a half outside one evening, you know, and the kids were just playing inside, and we just were praying for each other, laying hands on each other, and it was powerful. I mean, it really moved me. Because you know, people are struggling with stuff, and it's so hard when you struggle with things by yourself.
Yeah. 100%.
And so when you have someone else that you can trust and share that with, it just helps so much to be able, you realize you're not the only one that's struggling with whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you know, whatever it is, financially, you know, struggle with kids, and you know, addictions, whatever it is, there's lots of other people there, and you know, there's lots of people that want to help, or
Yeah.
are, you know, walking that same path, and that want to walk it with you. So
Yeah.
yeah, just finding people that are, you know, are believers too, and they're willing to work and just do life with you, I think is important.
Sure. I hadn't really. I think I probably discounted the power of community, man, until just even recently, and I started to see. In fact, someone told me that God is a great example of community himself, in that, you got the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, all to kind of community together. Then I started to see all these examples in the Bible, like the guy, remember the guy who I believe he was lame, I think, and his friends brought they went to bring him to Jesus, but they couldn't get in, so they had to go down through the roof.
Yeah,
And it's like, man, that's community. Then also like David's mighty men, that
yeah.
with all the, so it's like all these great examples, and just to really confirm and emphasize the power of it. And we need, like you said, we need each other. But okay, so you said that you mentioned a few different things that you did. I mean, you sound like you build houses. Now you're a coach. I mean, so how did you discover your purpose? I mean, what did you do to discover it, and how would you recommend people go about doing that?
So, you know, starting out as a young man or as a young person,
Yeah,
you kind of, you do what you can, you get a job, you know, you do, it might not be your career for the rest of your life, you know, you
sure.
kind of just gain experience doing things. So yeah, I mean, I did a few different things, you know, growing up, got into teaching, and you know, I think for a long time, um, I did well as a coach,
Okay.
and I really enjoyed connecting with people one on one and helping them. So, you
Okay.
know, I coached wrestling, um,
Okay.
and I really enjoyed seeing someone develop and, you know, just be better, not only at the sport, but helping young men. And then, you know, the last 5 years, women's wrestling was a
Oh,
sport in Missouri also. And so I coached men, boys and girls
okay.
wrestling in high school. But, you know, helping someone develop not only physically and athletically, but as a person. And, you know, some of the greatest stories are the kids that had never wrestled before, but
Mm.
came from a broken home, had
Okay.
nothing, was not a great person, but you know, learned wrestling, but learned how to be a man, or learned how to really be a woman, and you know, be successful as a human being more than being successful in the sport.
Yeah.
And so, when I got out of teaching and coaching sports, um, it was, I think, just a natural transition to help people. And I really enjoy helping men, uh, you know, find their purpose and break down those walls and that bondage and kind of work through um, their own issues and just, feel fulfilled and make the most out of their life. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a great way. You talked about community and
Yeah.
just, having somebody that you can trust and rely on. And so, being like a life coach is great because you can really connect with somebody, um, over the phone like this, with
Yeah.
the Zoom
Sure.
call, and they can be across the country, and it's not as personal. That person is trying to help you and has been through a lot of life experiences that can help you on your journey,
Yeah.
but they're not your next door neighbor, and
Right.
so you can be more more open sometimes because you're not worried about, if I share this or I share that, this struggle or whatever, I'm going to see them at the supermarket or they're going to tell this person or whatever because, they
Yeah.
could be 5 states away. And
Sure.
so,
Feel safe. Safe
um,
environment. Yeah.
yeah, safe. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's, just, I really enjoy, I feel called to helping people, specifically men, just be better fathers,
Yeah.
better husbands, because I think the man is the core of the household, and
Totally.
he needs to be the leader of the household.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a strong man in the household,
Problem.
teaching the kids and being a good husband, then that's why a lot of our society is kind of falling apart.
Totally. It's interesting. There's so much that you learn from your father or even from your parents, but we're talking about guys right now. So much that you learn that you don't even realize that you've learned from them. You know what I mean? Like one
Hmm.
of the things, like when we were talking in therapy, there, it's like, well, what are the rules? What are the sort of the rules that you learn? And it's like I didn't know there were rules, but I guess, then you start finding out,
Yeah.
well, I do it this way because I saw my dad do it, and I didn't even know
Yeah.
that my dad did this, or I
Yep.
caught that. It's just crazy. But with regard to finding purpose and with your clients that you help, what do you find is the biggest obstacle to people discovering their purpose? I mean, what's the thing that's holding them back most often?
Um, I would say a lot of men, especially, is just self-doubt.
Okay.
They don't believe in themselves because um, they've never really maybe had to rely on themselves.
Okay.
And so, that there's that obstacle of, seeing your own worth
Yeah.
as a man, and really just believing in yourself. And so just there's, each person is different,
Yeah.
individual
Sure.
cases. Um, but a lot of men struggle with not not truly even um, knowing who they are,
Okay.
or knowing who their creator is. Trusting in Jesus. If you don't have that,
Yeah.
everything else is so much harder.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if you don't have that first that that base foundation, it's hard to really see your own value. If you don't have that relationship with Christ.
Totally. Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, the one person I spoke with said before you can know and understand who you are, you have to understand whose you are, just that connection between that. And that gives
Yep.
you confidence. Yeah, it's interesting. So, have you ever had a time where you felt that you I guess in terms of spiritual growth, I mean, like what uh have you had a time of spiritual like sort of stagnation that you sort of felt kind of stuck? And and if you did, what did you do to kind of come out of that and sort of reignite your relationship with the Lord?
I tell you, I feel like, life is ebbs and flows, and it's
Sure.
such a cycle where you feel like sometimes, you get to the highs of the mountain,
Yeah.
and then, it'll cycle back around to you get back down to the valley. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's been many times in my life, throughout my 40 plus years on earth where I've felt closer to God in relationship with God. And then, I really feel like, as I um, got farther from God, a lot of it was because of lack of community and being more secluded and individual. And I think, that's a big part of the way that the devil um, kind of wins your heart, is making you feel isolated and alone.
Okay.
And so when you feel farther from God, you feel farther from his creation and the other people in his creation. And then you get deeper and deeper into your sin, or,
Or whatever.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, um, I would say, um, in my life, probably in my college years, I was um, really involved with sports,
Okay.
and I wrestled in college. Um, and then that kind of didn't work out, and I transferred colleges, and was kind of, just in a spot where I didn't really have a purpose, because wrestling
Yeah.
was it, and I was really into sports. And if you make that one thing the most important thing in your life, when that's gone or that's over,
Yeah. That is just, yeah.
however,
You do.
if
Yeah.
that ends, it could end with an injury, it could end with, just aging out, and you get too old.
Yeah.
But when you don't have that anymore, that can be difficult if that's the only thing that you have. And so, having that relationship with Jesus, and then, but that led to probably the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life, which was meeting my wife.
Wow.
We both signed up for a backpacking trip on a spring break. We were in college down at Southwest Missouri State, and we met on this week-long backpacking trip.
Nice.
And so, transferring and moving schools, and kind of, moving out of the home, and big life changes, but then, it can lead to some of the best things that can happen in your life. And, she's been really an incredible rock in my life, and just
Oh,
um, help me so much spiritually. You talk about being a pastor's kid. She was a pastor's kid.
okay.
Um, so her dad was an Assembly's AG minister. So
Okay.
growing up, she was a pastor's kid too. And so
Yeah.
she's very grounded in her spirituality, and very close with the Lord too. So that's been a
Good
just a
help.
good influence on me and our kids.
100%. Yeah. Sounds like my wife. My wife, you mentioned you're a life coach. My wife is my life coach. My wife is my life coach. She's my best friend. And so, and you know what, man, we're just about out of time. I mean, we got so involved. I was going all over the place, but I really enjoyed hanging out with you. I think we need to
Yeah,
get the part two, man, because I got like
sure.
13 questions I haven't even hit yet. But I enjoy talking with
Yeah,
you, and I really feel like what you had to say is going to bring value to people. And yeah, man, let's not make this the last time. Let's maybe hook up again. And I also want to talk about some of the other stuff that we're doing. We can figure out other ways that we can sort of add value to each other and all that. So I think we got a
yeah,
lot. This is only part one. All right.
yeah. That sounds good. Appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Well, thanks for your time, and so I'll be talking to you real soon. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Take care.
All right, bye.